Have you ever found yourself writing code so quickly and checking it in that you forgot to run the formatter? Have you found yourself checking in tests that were broken, then realizing that after the fact? I'm going to show you Git hooks and how you can use those to solve these problems. I am running the Clean Architecture solution, and I am using Clean Architecture unit tests, navigating to the core folder, then the project aggregate folder, and we will look at to-do item mark complete. But before we get into the tests part, let's deal with the formatter part. So I'm going to open up the file, and I'm going to pretend that I needed to write code and have no formatting, and make sure everything is pushed over to the left. Okay, so we've got some gross formatting in place, and I'm going to go ahead and save that. And let's say that there's a production fire. This code is super important, so I am going to git add this file. And I'm going to git commit-m unformatted production fire code. Notice that that's there. That's gross. Who would do that? Anybody who's put out a production fire knows those pains. I'm with you on that. So how do we go ahead and clean that up? Well, in order to do that, we need to go into our thing called Git Hooks. So I'm going to right click on my file, and I'm going to go to Open Containing Folder. Once I do the Open Containing Folder, this will take me into my folder in File Explorer, and I want to navigate to Clean Arch Demo, which is the root of my repository. That's cloned locally. Again, this is a Git repository, so I'm going to go from the root of my solution to the .git folder, and we're going to look at the hooks folder. Git hooks allow you to inject your code at various points throughout the Git process. This is local on your machine. This is not part of the CI/CD system. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. But this is locally. So when I commit my code, I should have had the formatter run for me and run it cleanly. Thankfully, these Git hooks, there's one called pre-commit that allow us to inject our code, so I can tell it, hold up, I want you to run the formatter. I'm going to rename this file, so I'm going to right click on this, and I'm running Windows 11, so I'll go into Properties and take the sample extension off. So it's just going to be called pre-commit. Shell scripts, they do not need an extension to run, so taking off the extension is fine. Making sure there's no space at the end there, and then I'm going to tell it okay. Windows is like, are you really sure? Yes, that's fine, Windows. Okay. So what I did is I took off the .sample. Now let's go into Visual Studio, and let's take a look at the pre-commit file. So I'm going to come under File, and then I'm going to tell it to open, File. Again, our folders under the root of the solution, .git, into hooks. I'm going to open up pre-commit. Now if you're not familiar with shell scripts, know that this first line is going to say which shell to run. Now everything underneath, this is all boilerplate code, so I'm going to get rid of it. All I want to do is I want to run my formatter before I commit the code. So this is why I'm in pre-commit. Now I'm going to do the command echo, double quotes, running the .NET formatter, and this is just for our own, the process is running. I put another echo, done formatting, and in between those we will sandwich that with a .NET format. I will save it. So my pre-commit script, I still leave the bin sh up at the top. That's a shell script indicator on running it. I'm using echo to write out the running the .NET formatter. This is just our clue that, hey, this is what's going on. Then it's going to run .NET format. And then it's going to echo done formatting. Now this could take a long time if you're working in a larger project, so be aware of that pain point. So now I'm going to go back into my to-do, and my to-do item complete. I'm going to find my very first test at the top. The set is done to true. And I'm going to add another assert in here. And I'm going to do assert.fail instant fail. This will set us up for the next demo. Semicolon. Now I have Visual Studio already doing some formatting for me, so you know what? Let's just save it. And I'm going to add in here. So we'll do a git add, git commit -m, adding a failing test with non-formatted code. Now I say that, but when I press enter, notice there's the running the .NET formatter. So it's doing its thing. Done formatting. Notice that our test looks a lot more readable now because the formatter ran. Now, again, this was pre-commit, which means that the formatted code went in with that commit. Now, the other issue we have are with tests. We don't want tests to go in. We could do a check for the tests in here in our pre-commit. We could do something here where we could say running the .NET test, do .NET test, and then echo done. We could. But that doesn't do us any good. Or does it? Well, let me show you. So I'm going to say echo running tests. And I don't need to actually say it done because this is going to be the endpoint for it. So I'm going to do .NET test. Save that. And I'm going to instant fail exclamation point and save it. And git commit, git add, git commit -m, updating fail message. It's going to run the formatter. There shouldn't be any formatting changes. Notice now running tests. It's a bunch of outputs from preview versions. Here we go, running the actual tests. Oh, we've got a failed. Well, of course we got the failed because we have an assert fail. Did that actually commit? Well, if we do a git status to ensure where we're at, notice that the commit didn't happen. Now, some of you might be going, but this is a pain point where I need to do a bunch of commits, and then when I do my push, that's when I care about my tests. There's a hook for that. So let's go back to our Git Hooks folder. And we'll take a look and you'll see that there's another one, which is pre-push. And so we're going to rename our pre-push.sample. That's going to be just pre-push. And tell it OK. Yes. And so I'm going to go into our Visual Studio. I want to open another file. This time I want to go into our Git folder and I want to grab pre-push, which is under Git, and then hooks, and then pre-push. I'm going to take out all the boilerplate in pre-push. We'll go back under our pre-commit, grab our running tests. We don't want to run tests every commit because that will slow us down from being productive. However, I really don't want to check in broken tests into the remote, so I'm going to go to pre-push and I'm going to have it do echo running tests and save that. And then let's go ahead down here. So I still have my failing test. You can see that right here. If I go in and say, I'm just going to press up arrow to get my commit and update the failing message. It's going to run the formatter. And then once that's done, it updated the failing message, but I still have failing tests. I was able to commit just fine. Now let's push these. So if I do git push, notice there's the running test. And it failed. Okay, so then did anything get pushed? Just to make sure, we'll do a git status. On branch, nothing commit, working tree clean. And it didn't push the refs to the clean arch demo. So if I do a git log, you can see my main is here. Origin main is still down here at git ignore. I apparently did not push my initial code check prior to this. So I didn't push the changes there. In order to fix that, I need to go into my test. I'm going to get rid of my assert fail. I'm going to save it. I'm going to git add that. Git commit -m. No more failing test. Of course, it's going to run the .NET formatter because I have that for the pre-commit hook. And I can tell it git push. Now, if I find myself running a lot of git commits, this might get super frustrating. So I could also just take this out of my pre-commit and move it to my pre-push as well. Notice these files are running locally. They are not getting checked in because they are excluded from that. Okay, so now I'm moved my running tests and my formatting from pre-commit to only do this before I push. I'm going to do a git push. So it's going to run the formatter because we just changed it. Running the tests. One test file. Saw green go by, which means it passed. More passed. More passed. And it pushed. So in this video, you learned how you could set up the Git hooks to do the formatting and running the tests and ensuring that you have passing tests before you push to your remote branch. If you want to know more on how you can incorporate this into your CI/CD process, sign up for our webinar happening on June 27th, 2023. Link is in the comments.